Hello, brothers and sisters in sobriety. Hello, friends in fitness. And to everybody out there tuning in, this is 40,000 Steps Live. I'm your host. I'm not a healthcare professional. I'm not a counselor, a psychiatrist, a therapist, and none of that stuff. I'm a guy with about a year and a half of sobriety and a great story. I happen to think it is because it's a story that resonates with a lot of people. Hopefully it offers hope, and hopefully we can learn some stuff from each other along the way too. We have a supremely special guest tonight. I told him that I would say that. He's my very best man. That is Jason Kowalski. We're going to talk about our heyday as drinkers when we were partying hard on a regular basis. And we're going to talk about the guilt that he ended up in when he found out that his buddy turned out to be a raging alcoholic. We're also going to lay the wood to toxic masculinity. We're going to talk about all that. It's a great night for a run, so let's lace them up for 40,000 steps. All right, so I have no regrets. And that sounds cliche, right? I mean, a lot of people like to say that, but in my case, it's true. I've got no regrets because if I hadn't lived through the stuff that I lived through, if I hadn't become like a walking dumpster fire, I wouldn't be here talking to you. I wouldn't have my perspective. I wouldn't be in a position to help people and to be able to say, yeah, I've been there, done that, barely lived through that. We'd still be spending our hard-earned money. We as a family would still be spending it on alcohol. I wouldn't be in the best shape of my life. And honestly, I have no idea how in the hell I would have gotten through 2020 if I had been drinking. I think about hangovers. I think about like the negative emotions that would come out of drinking or just living through 2020. So I show up with gratitude every day for my sobriety. Now, earlier this year, I called up my buddy Jay, and I told him I needed him to know that I have no regrets. Because, man, back in our heyday, in the immortal words of the Hold Steady, we had some massive nights, man. Time of our lives doing it, as you're supposed to do, right, during college. And as hazy as our 20s were, I wouldn't go back and change a thing. Scout's honor. Now, it's funny that when I first met Jay, in my early 20s, I had a really hard time drinking, like, physiologically, like I'd feel like I got full fast. I had acid reflux going on. Like if we were having like a poker game, I'd take my beer when I went to the bathroom just so I could dump some out, so I could try to hang, right? Anybody else done that? It's a safe place, you can admit it. Because I would do my damnedest to hang, man. I needed to be in the club. I wanted to be like Jay because he was the coolest guy I'd ever met. The table, I wanted to be like that guy. I wanted him to be my best friend. So you know what I did? I got better at drinking. By my mid-20s, I was damn good at drinking. And by my 30s, I was a world-class drinker. No longer feeling inferior. I was in the club. No more shame. When I look back on the photos of myself through the years, there's a hand. I'm going to show you a couple of examples. I'm going to put some pictures up here. Here's a couple of pictures. These are from my wife, Kayla, and I. This is from our bachelor and bachelorette party. Look at him. He's got the Bloody Mary in his hand, one of several dozen drinks that he had that day. And now I'm going to show you this next one. Look, I love our friend. And close with them, we have honest conversations about my drinking. This is a very clever shirt. I mean, let's get Heimered. It was this was it. Drinking was such a huge part of our lifestyle. Well, by the time we left the ballpark that day, I was half in the bag. By the time we had dinner, me and my friends, I was blackout drunk, and I remember nothing about my bachelor party. That's one of my greatest regrets. On our wedding eve, we had our wedding party dinner, and in the bar there was karaoke. We stayed out late, had a lot of drinks. I would, look, our wedding was the greatest day of my life, no questions asked. But if I could go back and not have a mild hangover at my own wedding, oh, I would give anything for that. So, I mean, here's another telling picture I'm going to show you, and this became all too common. This picture is from the Quad Cities Half Marathon. Kayla and I just finished the half, and look, there's a beer in my hand. There's a happy guy. I've got lots of post-race pictures like this. And here's what you don't see there, is that Kayla, some of her friends from the Y and coworkers from the Y had run the race as well. And she and some of them went back out to root on one of their coworkers who was still out on the course and was still battling. And meanwhile, I drank about 4 more beers. I went repeatedly to the beer table, and I got more beers, and I just kept drinking. So I got better and better at hiding it like that. Bottles in the closet, 12 packs under the car seat, 24 ounces in the golf bag in the garage. Just a few years ago, it got to the point where I could drink an entire case of beer a day, or a fifth of liquor. No more gut rot, no more reflux. So eventually I had to hit my version of rock bottom, surrender, go to rehab, and go through that process in order to get to the path that I'm on today. Leading up to me checking into rehab, and Jay was one of them, and everybody told me that they loved me and that they wanted me to get better. And it made it so much easier for me to do the work. But somehow I didn't see that coming. Like, I was expecting judgment. I was expecting, to feel shame. And I know that, Jay told me he loved me, and I know it ate him alive. Jay's an incredibly intelligent guy, a very empathetic guy, kind of a quietly empathetic guy. And I knew that it must have hit him like a ton of bricks. I was like, this is my guy. And I was there, man. What did I miss? What could I have done differently? And I know a lot of you folks are going through that too. Whether you're the one who's trying to survive through addiction, or if you're one of those people who has a friend who's lived through addiction, you're like, man, could I have saved them? Could I have saved them a lot of pain? Could I have saved this entire family a lot of pain? Well, I got to tell you, stop. You have to stop beating yourself up, because addiction is a monster. And the deck is stacked against people who are wired like me. The deck is stacked against me. It's stacked against my family. Addiction does not discriminate. And when you're in it, man, you will do some crazy things. And your addiction will do some crazy things to not let go of that relationship. So forget about what's happened. You got to have your eyes forward, and you have to be there for each other. I want to give you a little bit of sticker shock here. And I want to mention that treatment, as I went through, is very, very expensive. It's also the surest fire way to get help and stay clean. But what I'm hoping is that maybe through this program and then the honest conversations that happen afterward, this would be the greatest accomplishment of my life, is if some of the people watching this didn't have to go through rehab. I mean, that means checking out of society for a few weeks. It's traumatizing. But hopefully with the right tools and the right support, people can get clean and stay clean without having to go through that experience. Now, maybe you've got some questions for me. Maybe you're celebrating a sober anniversary. I'm pumped. Saturday is going to be 600 days for me. I love those round numbers. They're the best. And I celebrated on New Year's Eve by pointing out that it was my first full year sober, wire to wire, in a quarter century. Total mind blow, right? Isn't that wild? So chime in. You can send an email to 40,000steps@gmail.com. You can comment below. Let us know if you have questions, or if you have anything you want to share, or if you have something to celebrate. But let us know if you want to remain anonymous. Always make sure that you point that out. We're going to do something in this next block where we can take some of your questions and address some of your comments in the I Hear You segment. I'm going to give you a minute or two to come up with those ideas and share them. In the meantime, I'm going to talk about an organization that's incredibly near and dear to my heart, the Salvation Army. Salvation Army folks, they rescued a lot of Christmases this year. And now the Red Kettles, they might not be around anymore, but the communities that the Salvation Army serves, they're still more in need now than at any time in our lifetime, certainly mine. Now, you can make a big difference by going to salvationarmyusa.org and making a donation. No contribution is too small. Thanks to the generosity of millions who participated in the Angel Tree program or that donated in person or online, the Salvation Army rescued tons of Christmases for countless families in need. But the drive isn't over, folks. See, the funds raised throughout the holiday season, that helps the Salvation Army carry out its mission year-round. So please do your part by visiting salvationarmyusa.org and making a donation today. All right, I gave you enough time, folks. Hopefully you have sent us an email or made a comment of something you'd like to talk about in the next segment. I got some pretty cool stuff to talk about here. So let's get to it. It's I Hear You coming up next. Hey, I'm going to tell you right away, I hate resolutions, all right? I think they oftentimes set us up for failure. There's pressure, and it's like, okay, if I didn't fulfill my resolution, then I can't do that thing. But I put out a call to action on Facebook today, asking people if they had made a resolution to give up drinking this year. And I got a bunch of comments. And the people who sent these in, people who send us questions, comments, anniversary celebrations, and that sort of thing. The rules of this game are simple. If you do that, you get 40,000 points. Everybody who makes a contribution gets 40,000 points, and everybody wins, because when we talk about these things, whether it's me, you, anybody who this affects, we all win when we bring this stuff into the light. So here's some of the comments that I got. I love these. Love them. All right, Madison says, I did and blew it by the third. Did, that being made a resolution to quit drinking. She says, I'm going to try again. I keep telling myself that I can get back to having a healthy relationship with alcohol, but that clearly isn't happening. I need to take control this year with everything. Attitude, mindset, diet, and exercise as well. 2020 was a rough one, but I'm not having another year like that. Period. I love that emphasis. How awesome is that? Now, I've seen this person like tearing it up in the weight room. I know this person is capable of incredible things, Madison is. So I love that mental toughness. I know she's going to get after it. And I love the fact that she immediately said, I'm going to try again. Because again, resolutions are not a be-all, end-all deal. She's getting right back on it. And, you know, I love how self-aware she is. She already knows that she might not be able to have a healthy relationship with alcohol. That's half the battle. And I think a lot of us who are addicted do know that, but we've got it so buried that we can't say it out loud. This is awesome. This is awesome. I'm so excited to hear how things go for Madison. Hopefully she'll hang with us and we'll find out the success that she has. All right, next up we've got Laura. She says, not as a resolution. You already get a gold star from me for that one. More as a realization. My goal is 30 days sober, and once I get there, I'll decide further. 5 days in, and the withdrawal is real. Random headaches, some major detoxing happening, but my clothes already feel better, and I don't feel so bloated. Note, she says, I've also given up my 2-a-day nicotine habit at the same time. Alcohol and nicotine go together in my world, so it's easier to give up both. And it's just 30 days, she says. I'm not pushing myself to do a year or a lifetime, just 1 month. I love how realistic she is there, in that she's not putting too much pressure on herself. She realizes the value of just kind of getting out of that cloud of drinking. And here's what I'm going to say to Laura is, wait until you're sleeping like you were sleeping when you were 10 years old. And then check back in with us, because I have a feeling if anybody gives up alcohol for a few weeks, they're going to realize that they're connecting deeper with people. They're sleeping better. They're more motivated. They're more positive. You know, everything just takes off when you're not living through this cloud. And so many of us spent a lot of 2020 in that cloud, right? Bite off little pieces like Laura's doing. 1 month. I'm so excited to hear how it goes for her. All right, this one's cool. My buddy Brian says, I did it, that being giving up alcohol as a resolution, not for addiction reasons, but because of the medication I'm on for arthritis and because of how bad it is for arthritis. Brian's hell of a guitar player. And he said, at this point, I don't even want it or miss it, that being alcohol. He said, also, here's where it gets really cool. Also, when our 7-year-old at the time, kids say, I like that you don't drink alcohol because it makes you different. It's hard to rationalize picking up a drink. Oh, how cool is that? When you know your kid notices and your kid is proud of you and realizes that that makes you special. I love it. I remember this is before I got clean. This is back when I was trying to get sober and failing a lot of the time. You know, my doctor told me that he had never had a drink in his life, which blew my mind. He and his wife both. And he pointed out to me that his kids would never see him with a drink in his hand and they'd never have that behavior to imitate. And son of a bee sting, I wanted that for myself. I was like, can I go back and undo the stuff that I did? It's like, no, I can't. But look at Brian's kid saying, I like this. I like that you don't drink, that you're not like everybody else who's drinking all the time. Man, that cut to me. That's so cool. Now, I did get an emailed question that sort of dovetails off all this. And this is from Kevin, which thank you everybody for writing, by the way. You guys rock. Kevin says, what are the dangers of quitting drinking cold turkey? This is an awesome question because a lot of people who rode a bender through 2020 and all of a sudden said, nope, done. Those people are at risk for significant withdrawals. And we're not just talking about tremors and shakes and you know, a cloudy brain and stuff like that. If you all of a sudden go from a 6 or a 12-pack case a day down to 0, you are putting yourself at risk for seizures, severe seizures. I'm sorry, I'm being just blunt with you because you know, I went through treatment, and the moment that you get in there, they figure out what medications to put you on to prevent severe withdrawals. So it makes it really hard to get clean because if you're drinking a ton, you want to taper yourself off. But try to get somebody who's quitting drinking to just have 2, to just have 1. It's tough, right? So my advice is to talk to your doctor. If you're seeing a therapist or a psychiatrist, talk to them so that they can get you on the right medication to help you safely quit drinking. Now, again, not a licensed counselor, therapist, not a healthcare professional. If you've been having like 2 or 3 beers a day for a while, you can quit cold turkey and you're going to be okay. That is not so severe of a drop off where your body will go into shock. But if you are a heavy drinker, make sure that you talk to somebody before you flat out quit drinking. All right? You with me? Awesome. We are going to bring in my guy, Jay Kowalski now, my very, very bestest good friend. This is the guest room segment. Let's head on over there and talk with Jay. Welcome back, gang, and welcome to my best friend, Jay. How are you, my man?
Can't hear you. Can you hear me?
He is speechless. I can hear you. I can hear you, though. So Jay's going to hop back in here in a minute. But in the meantime, I don't have any jokes. But what I'm going to talk to you about is like when Jay and I were hanging out, like back in our 20s, we would spring break together. I went to school at UW Milwaukee, and I probably spent as much time in Madison as I did in Milwaukee, just because that's where Jay was going to school. Are you with me now, brother?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, buddy, we're doing it.
This is only our 4th episode, folks. We're still ironing some things out and, you know, buttoning things up. Hey, man, Happy New Year.
Oh, great. Look what you're doing, man. This is amazing.
It's weird.
As a kid, I think it's great. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, man. Well, thanks for joining us because, you know, obviously given like our relationship for so very long. I mean, let's start with some of the highlights. All right. What are some of your fondest memories of when like we first started hanging out when we were in our early 20s?
Oh man, probably working in the video store together. For some reason they left us in charge from 4 to midnight. So that was always a good time. Road trips for sure. Brewer spring training. Um, Learning to drive past semis. It was just big things, and then just through college, Badger games. Like I don't know how many hockey games we went to. Uh, Football Sundays, getting up early, heading out to Bennett's, good times there, and just living it up. You know.
Yeah, and, the church key, all the places that we more or less lived
Yeah.
throughout college. Now, I mean, I wouldn't trade that in for anything. When we were catching up back, I think it was like March or April after the pandemic hit, and I guess I had never really put together, and I started learning this with my parents when I started talking and putting my story out there, and they had that guilt of like, oh my God, what did we miss? What could we have done differently?
Yeah.
When we were hanging out in our 20s, did you ever see any red flags, or did you see any over the years, like when I got into my 30s? What do you think?
During the 20s, no, because like we were Thelma and Louise doing it together. So like I wasn't looking for it, and
Mhm.
I was more or less just trying to lead the way. I guess as we got into our 30s, well, maybe even before that, I think like when you were doing a lot of your journalistic work, and I told you the other day, you kind of reminded me of like the stereotypical movie journalist who always drinking, had a cigarette, but always had the story. He always had the scoop, and he always got the story in on time, never delayed. You were very functional, and I guess I didn't realize it till later on, like into your 30s, when you actually told me how functional you were.
Yeah.
Um, I was surprised, and I want to ask your opinion on this. You were telling me how many times you just talked to people and thought in your head, like, how do they not smell booze on me? Like, how many times do you think people just didn't say anything?
Oh,
Just feel
I guarantee it happened a lot.
Mhm.
And it's amazing how that when you're getting away with it, though, you don't really think twice because you
Nope.
develop this habit of, okay, I got away with it. I can get away with a little bit more, and you just keep pushing it.
Confidence. Yep.
So, you know, when we were talking earlier this year, and we got into sort of the guilt thing, because there's a ton of people out there who are dealing with this, who feel like they should have noticed something.
Mhm.
I talk to people all the time who, they're just perpetually like beating themselves up about it. And I privately sort of like exonerated you, and I said, dude, I wouldn't have changed a thing. Like those experiences were so formative that now I can look back and have the perspective and hopefully help some folks.
Sure.
But I mean, what was that like for you? And any advice that you can give for people who are kind of wrestling with that, what could I have done differently thing?
Yeah. I guess the hardest part for me was realizing that, like, I don't know, I felt like I don't know, like I said, holding your hand through it all. Your intro was very kind, but at the same time, it was like, man, I didn't want him to like want to be my friend because I was a great drinker. Like,
It's funny
but
though. Dude, that's Wisconsin, right?
you're absolutely right. You're totally right. And like I say, I didn't want that now, but like back then, like I wanted to be the guy that like, oh man, Kowalski can drink, like that guy can hang, and
Mhm.
I took pride in that. And now it's like I don't know, huge regret. Wish I hadn't done that, but you're stupid. You're a kid. You don't know any better. Um, eh, as far as advice, it's tough because as terrible as guilty as I feel, you also are a grown man who makes your own decisions.
Mhm.
Um, and so I can only stand by you and give my advice, but I can't tell you what to do. So as far as somebody dealing with someone close to them, you just got to be by their side and just support them. Tell them when they're wrong because that's what they need to hear, and you're the one that needs to
Mhm.
do it. And that sucks. Like telling you you're wrong is like one of the hardest things ever.
Well, I think you got to.
I'm wrong. It's one of the hardest things ever. I don't want to hear it, but like it just needs to be done.
And then you have to sort of brace for the splashback.
Oh, sure.
Because if somebody's drinking too much, you're like, hey, let's pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah.
That rarely goes well.
Never does.
I mean, we're getting into some of this toxic masculinity stuff. Like, you got that drinking culture in Wisconsin where, like, do you remember like hanging out at parties and like a girl would show up and she could actually like drink as much as the guys, and it like there was like this celebration. It's like, oh, dude, she can hang. I mean,
yep.
How awful.
Everybody wanted her on your drinking team. Like it was, yeah, everybody, it was like, we took pride in very strange things as kids, but like, that's like, it was Wisconsin. Like we grew up in that culture, for example, my personal experience, my father owned a bar before I was even born. So when I was born, he was still friends with like all the tavern owners and stuff in Manitowoc. And so like, literally my sister and I were wheeling ourselves around the bar floors like weekends, like almost always. Yeah. And then you start drinking. I started drinking when I was 14, drank all through high school, went to Wisconsin because at the time US News, which this is crazy, they have a ranking of party schools. Madison was #1, and I was like, that's my spot. And so like we're just designed here to look to party and have fun. And it's, I don't know, I think that really needs to change. I mean, we glorify like the ages we turn like 18 and 21. Why? Because we can buy legal drugs basically in the forms of cigarettes and then booze. Like, and everybody gets excited for that. And like, I don't know, I really just, things need to change, I think.
Well, it's this romanticized idea of it. Like you mentioned, like going off to college. Like, what's the first thing every kid thinks about going off to college? And it's freedom. And when you're free and you're surrounded by beer ads and there's a bar on every single corner, I mean, society is really, like I said earlier, the deck is kind of stacked against us. Yeah. Did you have anybody, like, I'm not going to throw anybody in particular under the bus, but I definitely felt a lot of pressure from other people in my life who would ridicule me if I couldn't hang when I was drinking. Did you have people in your life who would do that too?
Maybe not on a regular basis, but say I know definitely like at parties in Madison, if we were playing like flip cup or something and like all of a sudden you just started puking, like people would like chant and taunt you to the point where like you would puke and rally.
Puke and rally.
Getting back in the game because I'm not going to be the one that's taunted tonight.
Yeah.
So it didn't happen a lot, but from like anybody in particular, but as a group, there was definitely group dynamic for it. Yeah.
What was wild for me was like my favorite story running for a while was my 21st birthday when I went out with some of the guys that I was in a band with. And the thing was 21 shots on your 21st birthday.
Yeah.
And we went around Manitowoc and we ended up at Desert Jack's. I know a lot of people out there know what I'm talking about. They had like the plane crashed in the roof of the bar.
That was the best decorative anything I've ever seen at a bar.
Absolutely. It was a travesty the day it came down, I think. But so we're at Desert Jack's and I get to my 21st shot and it was the guys ordered it up and it was a Sweaty Betty, which
I don't even know.
I mean, I barely, yeah. Yeah, it was half tequila and half and with some hot sauce in it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. so I tossed this shot back and my insides are just like on fire.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy behind the bar is like, "Are you all right?" And another guy's like, "Oh, order him like a schnapps or something like that." So I get another shot, and it was like some minty schnapps thing.
Bit of liquor.
So yeah, so there's shot number 22, and like I'm watching like the bags of chips like spinning on the wall, and it got to the point where I couldn't hold it in. I ended up throwing up all over the bar.
Oh no!
And yeah, and so like the folks around me in the bar are like, "Oh, it's so gross." And then one of the guys who was with us stands up and yells, "It's okay. It's his 21st birthday." And like the whole bar like erupts. Yeah. I mean, I was like blackout drunk, and I still
Yeah.
vividly remember that, and that was freaking important to me at the time.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you earned some stripes.
I was the frick, yeah, I was the champion that night, man. And I don't like it's cumulative, like this build up to becoming, potentially an alcoholic. But I mean, those memories are like seared into your mind.
Oh, sure.
So I forgive me if that was triggering for anyone, but just trying to make a point of like this is the culture that we live in.
Mhm.
Part of that culture, we were talking about is
You know what? You know what? I want to add to that. I did some
okay.
research, some data research, knowing that I was
Oh,
going to be on your show. Um, Shout out to Green Bay Crime Reports. It's a Facebook group that every day posts pictures of those who were arrested in Brown County the day before with their mugshots and description of crimes. Now, okay, this is Wisconsin culture at its, I'll say, worst. From December 1st to December 31st, 17 people got arrested for their third OWI. 10 of them got arrested for their fourth. 6 of them got arrested for their fifth OWI. And one person got arrested for their seventh through ninth. They grouped them together at that point.
yeah.
And I was talking and found out that the first OWI, it's a citation, it's a speeding ticket. Okay. The second and third are misdemeanors. It's not a felony charge in Wisconsin until your fourth OWI.
Right.
And there's not mandatory jail time until the seventh. Like, we've got to do something about that. That's insanity to me.
And then you cross the border and you get down here into Illinois, and it's like your second one, it's already an aggravated charge, and you're losing your license, and you're going to classes and counseling. Yeah. It is a different world, man. And that Wisconsin world is the one that we grew up in, where there wasn't punishment, there was celebration.
Right.
We some of the some of the some of the most memorable moments working at newspapers in Wisconsin was the crime reports, where it was like that was our source of entertainment, was the crazy things that people did while they were so drunk. So yeah, I mean, there's to a great extent, like we were complicit in it, but I don't know what exactly we do with it apart from making noise about it, writing letters to the editor, writing our legislators, and really kind of holding each other accountable. I mean, we've gone through this big reckoning where we're trying to like hold each other more accountable. Well, let's stop celebrating people who are just like poisoning themselves on a daily basis.
All right.
I don't know.
Here.
Well, hey, when we get into this toxic masculinity stuff, I don't want to get too far away from this because, like, I mentioned, like, how much I wanted to be like you because you were a very like naturally physically gifted person, and you worked hard at your physical fitness. And frankly, like when I met you, I was like, oh my god, this guy's like jacked, and like I was always trying to like hang with you in that regard too. And like if somebody looked at you and you were wearing like a tight t-shirt or something like that, like somebody might lump you unfairly into like the bro culture. Why don't you tell our audience how you feel about the bro culture? Let's give you a chance to set the record straight.
Because people have been talking, I know.
I know.
I don't have time for the bro culture. I think that society has developed or has created this idea of like, be a man. And what's a man? Just being an alpha all the time and just like puffing your chest, being strong, always taking charge. And like, that's fine. Those are good qualities to have, but like, you also need to be able to just turn it off, And I know guys don't like to hear this, but like, we don't need to be getting harder. We need to be getting softer. I think we need to be more compassionate. We need to be more empathetic. You can give your buddy a hug without slapping him on the back. You can actually embrace, and like it's not a weird thing. it's okay to show emotion. I just don't want, I don't know. I think it's time that men just, like I said, soften up. And part of that, coming back full circle into dealing with addiction, is that a lot of men who are addicts, who are dealing with depression, are too tough to be like, man, I need some help. Like, this sucks. Like, I hurt every day. I don't know what to do about it. Like, I wake up and just cry, you know? And that's another thing. Don't be afraid to cry. Crying is fantastic. I probably do it once a day. It's a little embarrassing. Sometimes I can't watch certain shows anymore. I quit watching Grey's Anatomy because I don't even pay attention, but I just jump in and I'm crying twice a show. But I just think that as men, we need to not be afraid to ask for help, be softer, and just be open to empathy and showing empathy and compassion.
Well, now this gets into one of the ways that we address this epidemic of drinking and stuff is if we actually treated people with compassion when they had a problem, rather than them ending up in jail after their, what was it, 7th OWI.
Yeah.
Maybe we could get them into treatment and get them some legitimate help. Actually address the mental illness that's behind that a lot of the time. You know, you and I were joking around earlier, maybe not joking, but we were talking about that this is the first show that I've done that's really zeroed in on addiction and recovery. Up until now, we've been talking about mental illness, and it's like you can't separate the two. A big driver behind all the substance abuse out there is the fact that, like you said, people don't feel as though they are allowed to show weakness and to get some freaking help. So, hey, now I showed you mine. You got to show me yours. In that I wanted to be cut like you. I wanted to be tough. I wanted to drink like you. But you and I kind of complimented each other in that way. Like all the while, I was like, how do I get to hang out with this guy? He's so awesome. But little did I know, like there were things about me that you wanted some of that too.
Okay. So back in the day, you were lead singer in a band that wasn't garbage. And I mean that nicely. Like you guys were good. You were regionally successful. Like you played Summerfest. Like that's amazing to me. But like any other people I knew, like they got together in the basement and like I was leaving. But you guys were good, and I wanted that so bad. Like I'd be going to karaoke, like pretending to be you, and just like so stupid, you know. And if we would just like would have complimented each other more, like I don't know. But yeah, you definitely call it like I said before. I was drawn to you initially when we worked at Family Video because I could tell like you were a nice guy. You were friendly to every customer, and I was like, well, I can talk to this guy. He's nice. And like then I could realize I could talk to you about anything and everything more than you'd probably ever want to. And so I don't know where I was going with this, but yeah, you had talents that I wanted tremendously.
And it's funny how like we keep talking about, like we there's the complimenting factor though. Like I feel as though in a lot of ways you and I turned each other into better people. And that's why, I mean, you think about it, like there are a couple of people I've kept up with throughout the years, but not like you and me, man. Like, I think it's kind of a rare thing to have a best friend for 20 freaking years. It's like, it's half of our life.
I know.
And it's like, I feel like our relationship right now is like healthier than it's ever been. And so much of that comes from the fact that we can have these sort of conversations.
Right. Like we used to love having those dopey conversations when we were all buzzed up, but like these clear-headed ones are pretty good too.
They're deeper. And you know, we remember them the next morning, so that's kind of neat.
Yeah. We don't have the same conversation the next day.
Well, hey, I'm excited to have you on regularly. I hope you'll indulge us for that because there's so much stuff that we can cover. I feel like we've kind of hit the tip of a whole bunch of icebergs tonight. Before we go, because we're talking about this toxic masculinity stuff, and we're talking about crying, And I admit that I literally broke down and cried. This was in the like the mid 2000s. I was living in Monroe. You were in Madison, and you this like seriously like I thought of you as like, you know, made in God's image, good looking dude, and you got Bell's palsy.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of our audience probably doesn't know what that is. Can you kind of explain what it was and what it resulted in?
Sure. Bell's palsy is basically when your facial nerve kind of just attacks itself, and the symptoms of it resemble a stroke. So I woke up a January morning and was walking home, and I realized I couldn't like blink the snowflakes out of my eye. And so I walked in the house and I looked in the mirror and I was like, I'm having a stroke for sure. What? And I was like 26 years old.
Right.
And so I went to the doctor and I was like, so what is this? And what do I do about it? And when's it get better? And he's like, well, we don't know anything about it. And I said, cool. And he said, do you know who Stuart Scott is? And I said, the Sports Center anchor? And he's like, yeah. And I knew that he had just gone through it, I guess. But he's like, yeah, Stuart Scott has that. And all I knew about that was like, he doesn't look the same as he did.
Right.
And I didn't want my face to be a distraction to people. Like, I didn't want people to just be like talking to me, but like thinking, why is his eye sagging? Why is his lip where his chin is? You know, like, so that was very difficult to deal with, like just with the unknown. So it was basically the doctor's like, cross your fingers and hope that the nerve regenerates correctly. So then for 4 months, I couldn't blink this eye at all. I had to sleep like in my pillow. I couldn't close my mouth on this side. I couldn't use the left side of my tongue. So if food got caught in my cheek, I had to like dig it out. So it was just put me in a dark place because I wasn't sure about the future. Like at the time, school wasn't doing well because I was partying too much. My girlfriend at the time she should have broke up with me like 3 months before that, but she was on the verge because I was partying too much. And so like it came at a bad time.
I was so freaking worried about you, and I had no idea what to do.
Yeah, it was really scary. I remember like talking and you crying and saying like, why aren't you like breaking down? Because I described, like I was primed for it. And like, I don't know, I think I was like in too dark of a place. And so like, yeah, that just started I don't know, a long valley of like depression and more partying. And so, yeah, that was definitely quite the traumatic event.
When you think about it, though, when you think back on it, it's like you got through that. You look awesome today. And it's like, do you look back on it? It's kind of like, yeah, anybody who that happened to would be leveled by it. Because I mean, it's what people see. It's your face. But you kind of look back on it, it's like, but technically, it is superficial. Do you think that you grew from that?
Yeah, it was weird. Like, I remember when you said, why aren't you breaking down? And in my head, I was like, I am, but like, there's nothing I could have done to control this. And then I compare myself to like people who are in much worse situations, and I'm just like, get over it. And so, like, it just took a lot of mental toughness and just, I don't know, desire and trying to just, it really did force me to take a different view and perspective on other people who have like those disformities or just natural things that like there's no control over it. So it did open my eyes to it a little bit.
Yeah, no kidding. I just remember coming away from that, and there was just something to be said for the fact that I didn't really see you get fazed by it. Like I knew that you were hurting, but it was just like there was something about it. It really like it did a lot for my depth of how much I loved you as a person, like top to bottom. You know what I mean?
Mm.
It was like it gave me an opportunity to sort of separate the physical, the emotional, the mental, and it was just I don't know. I felt like I grew from that too. It's just like, okay, yeah. I mean, I should be I should definitely cherish what's going on in the interior a little bit more too. So, but yeah, I figured while we're on the topic of toxic masculinity, man, that's any time that it comes to like superficial stuff, potentially superficial, it's a whole can of worms. So, all right, I see we're running out of time, and this has been awesome.
It has. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. I'm looking forward to having you on every once in a while because God knows that you and I will never run out of things to talk about. Oh. And I really hope that the next time we have you on, fingers crossed, prayers that we'll be able to do this in person at some point in the near future. Because I miss you. I miss you, and I love you so very much.
I love you. One of my favorite things to do back in the day was to call you when you were with a group of friends that, I don't know, I didn't really know them, or you were like on a date or something, and I'd end the phone call and I'd be like, Christopher, I love you. And you'd be like, all right, dude, talk to you later. And I'd be like, you say it. You say it now. And if you'd hang up on me, Christopher, I love you. And I'd make you say it. So yeah, tell your friends you love them. And yeah, love you, buddy. Talk to you soon.
That's perfect. Thanks, brother. We'll see you soon.
Absolutely.
It's good stuff, man. It's so good. Bobby the other week told me that he loved me as well. Guys, I can't emphasize enough that we need to say what we feel, right? At that time, we were talking about like social media posts, and we were talking about how, like, if I were reacting to somebody's comment, I'd be quick to click that like button. But what if I really like loved it? What if I really love what that person said? And click the stinking heart, folks, right? Let's try to spread some more positivity out there. If we could do that, we'd certainly move society forward a little bit quicker. I hope that you guys got something out of the show tonight, particularly when it comes to dealing with sort of the the stigma surrounding alcoholism and the relationships, and the fact that it does not exist in a vacuum, that there's the person who has the addiction, and then there's the other people who are very much traumatized by it. And the way that we heal is that we have the conversations, we do the work, so that it isn't just a matter of one person getting sober and coming home from treatment and everybody throws a party for them, throws them a parade. That's not how it works. We have to be able to do the work after the fact, so that when you get farther away from that last drink and you're feeling great, you're ready to just keep getting better and to connect with the people who you love and everybody to keep getting better together. I hope that you were able to take that away from tonight's show. I'm very much looking forward to catching up with everybody very soon. A very happy new year to everyone out there. It's been great hanging out with you. Just remember this, okay? If it feels like everything is falling apart out there, outside these walls, outside this little rectangle here, if it feels like everything is falling apart out there, in here, we're all coming together. Thanks, folks. See you soon.